Today I'm giving you a progress update of everything that I've been working on. So grab a cup of something and let's dive in. Welcome back, friends. If you are new here, my name is Melissa. I'm the dyer behind Rising Tide Fiber Company. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. All right, so I thought I would give you a little catch up. I'm in the last week before I go back to school full time as a teacher. So I've made a lot of progress. The first thing I finished is my sock week socks. Now, last time we chatted, I think I was partially finished one, and I was getting ready to start the second one. I did indeed finish the pair, and I'm really pleased with how these came out. I love this colorway that I dyed up. This is the sock set called Ready or Not. It's based on the book cover by the same title by Cara Bastone. I loved the book. I fell in love with the springtime cover, so I took it on and dyed up a colorway. You can find those sock sets on my website. But I did indeed finish. It went from Sunday the 20th through Sunday the 27th or whatever that was. I finished Saturday night at 6 o'clock. So I was really pleased with the progress that I made. So I do have a few ends to weave in. If you've been around here long enough, you know that I just pile things up and make like a night of it. And that's the only thing that I finished. I have not touched either of the Andrea Mowry cowl or shawl that I had started. I think it's like, what is it called? I do have my notes from a couple weeks ago. Maybe I don't have my notes from a couple of weeks ago. But I haven't touched the shawl that I'm doing, and I have not picked up my traveler's cowl again. But I have made some really steady progress on whips. So I want to show you my Geddy Tee. This is a pattern by Tanis Lavalley, I think. I'm drawing a blank on her last name, but Tanis Fiber Arts. Last time I saw you, I had crocheted my squares and I had split for the sleeves. I was actually right here. I had made a few inches of progress, and I'm happy to report that I finished that skein of yarn. I went back and did my V-neck. I did my arms. I obviously have some ends to weave in. I have done the body, and now I have started, is this the front or the back? I have started the front hem. It's a split hem sweater. I am so excited about this because we are encroaching on the weather where I can actually wear this. This isn't something that I would wear in the dead of summer. But even though I did my granny squares in 100% wool, I did choose a 50% cotton, 50% wool for the body of the sweater. And I chose to hold 2 strands of fingering together just to give it a little bit more movement. I know. Just to give the sweater a little bit more movement versus using a DK, which is just a tighter ply, I feel like. So I'm really happy with this. I'm hoping that going into the weekend, I'll have time to get this finished, certainly before I return back to school. But I am super excited about it. I am really happy with the way it is gonna fit. I have not tried it on, but You don't really have to do much because of the saddle shoulder type. I was afraid it was going to be too deep of a V, but once you do that V, it really kind of tightens that up. So I'm pleased. I don't feel like I have a ton of pooling. I might have a little bit towards the middle where I stopped one skein and started another. Um, but I even feel like because I was carrying 2 skeins of yarn, I didn't need to do any kind of helical knitting and change that up. So very excited to get that off the needles, particularly again, because we're coming into that time of year where um, temperatures are starting to fall. Here in Maryland, we did earlier in the week. It's been a really lovely week. Earlier in the week, we got like in the upper 70s. This week, it's been in the upper 70s, lower 80s. We are creeping back up, which does make me nervous. I'm kind of over the scorching heat. I know a lot of other people are too. And I'm excited to be able to wear these lightweight, like short sleeve sweaters. I didn't talk about the one that I'm wearing. This is the Retreat Tee by Tiffany Allen, and it's the same thing where the colorwork part I used 100% wool, or maybe that's 75-25, but then the natural fiber it's a 50% wool, 50% cotton DK weight blend. And I'm pretty comfortable. I had doctor's appointments today. I wore it with jeans and Birkenstocks, and I was comfortable, particularly being over at the hospital for my doctor's appointment. It's usually pretty chilly in those kinds of places. Then I went out to eat with my parents, again, really air-conditioned restaurant, so it was really comfortable to be in this. The next thing I want to talk about is a couple of pairs of socks that I've been working on. You may remember that I had finished, I had a couple of samples on the truck, and I've had them done, and now I'm ready to do their mates. So this is the Enchanting colorway. This is the finished one that had been hanging up last festival season. Last time we spoke, I was just a couple of rounds shy of getting to the heel flap. I haven't really done a ton with this because obviously I've spent so much time on my sweater, but I did get those rounds finished, and then again I was sitting in a doctor's office waiting room, and I did my heel flap and heel turn, and then fortunately I had another sock to work on because I didn't bring my notions pouch, so I didn't have any stitch markers to begin picking up my gusset stitches. So I will probably pick up my gusset stitches, and then that means it'll be ready to work on. When I go back next week, I know I have like an all-day in-service one day, so there'll be some downtime, and though I'll be home with the dogs, when they're sleeping and I'm sitting through a meeting, it's really hard to pay attention sometimes. So I feel like having a simple sock that I can just be working on, it'll help me focus and pay attention to whoever the speakers are. I'm going into year 20 of my job, and though there are aspects of it that have some big changes coming along with it this year, there are a lot of speakers that we hear every year, and they reiterate the same exact things. So it's very easy to become distracted and kind of tune out or zone out when you're home. So having a sock will definitely keep me motivated to kind of focus and pay attention. The other sock sample that I had was my She Put 'Em on the Map colorway. And that is a nod to Taylor Swift. And the last time I talked to you guys, I was only right about here. So I've done the extra inch, and I have started this heel flap. Again, I have not touched this. The only time that I have worked on these is when I was sitting in a doctor's office waiting And I usually just, like, I was reading my Kindle and just working on my heel flap. So pretty basic, pretty easy. Pardon a little Miss Paisley who's grumbling. I'm recording this rather late. She should be kind of napping, but she's annoyed with me. I thought she'd be quiet, but she's not. Then last time we spoke a couple weeks ago, I had crocheted not just the granny squares for my Geddy Tee, but if you remember, I knew that if I didn't go ahead and crochet the 9 squares that I needed for the Fleetwood, I might just continue to not start that sweater. So I am happy to say that I did spend an evening weaving in the ends. I did it, I want to say, during like knitting group on Zoom one night. I just kind of weaved in ends and knocked it out. And then I have never done any kind of crochet join as you go, but that's one of the ways that for the Fleetwood Sweater, again by Tanis of Tanis Fiber Arts, she recommends doing the join as you go, or you could join them any other way, but that's the way that she did it. And I did watch the video that she provided. She provided a video link of someone else doing it. And I just took an evening where once the dogs had all kind of settled for a nap, I got started. I did have to stop and put it down halfway through it to take them out when they woke up. But I'm happy to say that I did indeed get all my squares joined, and I have completed the entire front of my sweater. I'm very excited about this. And in case you didn't know, obviously, this is a sweater that is done in pieces where you crochet your squares, you join them all together, then you do this, you do a panel, then you do your other panel, then you do some mattress stitching, and then you have to pick up across the top and do some shaping for your neckline here, and then you pick up the bottom and you do your ribbing. And then I did indeed start my back. So I'm not very far into the back, but guys, it's been 2 weeks and I'm almost done the Geddy, and I'd say a third of the way done with this sweater. I've done the front, I've started the back, and then it's my understanding when I read ahead that after I do the back, then I will like 3 needle bind off at the shoulders, seam up the sides, do the sleeves, and do the neck. I think this one, I don't remember. This one might also be a split hem. I don't really remember. But I actually, when I did the front, I powered through this. I was so excited about getting this whole front done that I kind of abandoned everything else, of course, except for socks when I was doing doctor's appointments. If you're new around here, because I'm a teacher, I hold off on all my like primary, like, mammograms, OB, primary care doctor. Like, I save everything for the summertime because it's a little bit harder because of the department that I work for. It's kind of challenging to take time off because it's not like I have a substitute per se. So it's just easier to save them for the summertime when I have far greater flexibility. I will say though, it's getting really hard to get in to see some doctors. Like, you call and then it's like they're scheduling you 2 months out, which was a little frustrating. But I have a couple more to go. But so far I've knocked out just about everything. So once I crocheted my squares together, then I quickly did my strips, and then I went straight into connecting. Like, the strips, you're just going back and forth for so many rows. And those were really easy to knock out while I was watching television. That made for really crazy easy, like binging television and just knitting a couple strips. And then even picking up stitches and connecting them and doing the shaping up here, it's not a lot. So this was a lot of fun. I don't really like per se going back and forth, but when you're doing a strip of like, I don't know, 20, like 30 stitches, again, it went really fast binging television. When I got to this part, I kind of petered out a little bit and decided I wanted to go back to going around and around and around, which is why I went back to this. And I did the ribbing for my neck and my sleeves, and then I just continued to go round and round. And before I knew it, I was pretty much where I needed to be, and I could easily then, we had already marked the halfway point, and so now it's really easy to just do my ribbed hem. So I will finish that, and then I will return to this. This could also make really nice knitting next week when I'm like sitting in meetings. I do think, not next week, but the following week, I do think I have to physically go into a school for an all-day in-service on curriculum. So it might be an opportune time to have a sock or a couple of socks in a round and round, like on the foot part, because this might be a little big to be. This is more obvious. I've only gotten in trouble once for knitting during like an in-service type thing, a professional development meeting, and I was knitting a sock, and I had it in my lap, so it wasn't even on the table. I was in the very back of the room, so no one could really, no one knew what I was doing, except for the lady that was running it, and she took me out in the hallway and she reprimanded me like I was a child. And then when we went back in, then she did like this quiz, and I knew all the answers. So at that, once I realized, like, I realize that I know all the answers because I'm paying attention. So you can't blame it my knitting. And nowadays I was long enough where nowadays I don't think of knitting as anything different than, say, a kid who has like a fidget spinner or some sort of fidget tool to help them focus. Knitting does the same for me. So, but I do try to not be super obvious with larger pieces, though this is back and forth and it's technically not very big. I could see me finishing the Geddy over the weekend and then picking this up. I might pick socks up long enough to get them in a position where it makes it easier to take them on the go. And that is on my whips. And I feel like I've made a ton of progress in 2 weeks. However, I do recognize that the amount of making time that I'm going to have available to me is going to drastically decrease, where I'd say in the last month, I've had a little bit of more downtime because I'm not working. I'm still running Rising Tide Fiber Company, and that has required me to, do dyeing for the truck to make sure that I'm in a good position for the fall. I have kind of reorganized, like looked at what I have in overstock, and I've started, doing that, dyeing things up. So then I have back stock of certain things. And then I just got delivered all the yarn, so I'm going to start dyeing all the Halloween advent stuff. I can probably get the 31-day Halloween advent. I'm thinking, fingers crossed, that should only take me a couple of days to get all that dyeing knocked out. And then the sock sets they may take me a couple of days because there's a lot more of the sock sets than there are of the 31-day advents, which speaks to my heart, because I love sock sets. So I will get those out of the way, and then I will move on to the Christmas ones. All of the planning for the Christmas ones, that has all been developed, and those should move fairly fast as well. So orders were closed for those a few weeks ago. So I will have extras. I don't know how many extras I'll have. It won't be many. I basically do enough extras to kind of round out, the number of pans that I have for those. But everything, I've ordered the last few things that I needed because I order all the bases in advance. So I have them before I put pre-orders up. Based on my rough estimate. And so I needed to order a few more of some of that stuff. So things are looking really good. I have not in previous years closed advents so early. Like, this is really early for me. Normally I don't close them until about the end of September, and then I'm really busting my butt to try and get them dyed. And last year was really hard on me because my numbers were a bit more than I had anticipated. So this year I closed them earlier because it puts me in a much better position. So I'm less stressed about getting them done, getting them wound, getting them packaged, getting them labeled, all that good stuff. So I know that when I put them up in like March and April every year, people are like, oh my gosh, we're thinking about Christmas already. Yes, they're a ton of work. I don't mind doing them as long as it's not stressful. And I've had a few years where it's incredibly stressful, and I just don't want that, knowing that I'm going into a school year where there's some major changes with like the learning management system that the school system has switched everybody over. And so that means training kids how to use it, training my teachers how to use it. Like, I know that I will have to put in more time for my day job. So I want to make sure that I'm not stressing with my dyeing, with the fun job. I have been doing a ton of reading because I have been spending so much time in the dye studio, and I think I've read again like 11 or 12 books, because I did have a few advanced reader copies that I needed to get the reviews in for the authors on NetGalley. So there were a few afternoons while the dogs were sleeping, I would just have it on my Kindle, and I would be knitting and reading on my Kindle at the same time. But I also have gone through quite a few audiobooks. Because there's so many, I'm going to do what I did last time, where I just put them in a separate video so I can tell you my thoughts on the various, because 11 or 12 books is just a lot. Yeah, it's 11, and I could quite possibly, I'm about 50% through an audiobook, so it's possible that I could end up with a 12th one in there. As for what I'm watching, when I was binging for like this kind of stuff, I started out with Ransom Canyon on Netflix. I had tried to watch it when it first came out, and I think I was distracted, and I just realized that I wasn't paying attention, and I was like, oh, well, if I can't pay attention to this, like, with all these cowboy hats, then this isn't the show for me. And then I realized, a few months later that let's go revisit this. I couldn't find anything to watch really. So I was like, let's try this again. So I was about 15 minutes into it, I think. So I just started episode 1 from the beginning. And because I wasn't playing on my phone, I wasn't distracted, dogs were sleeping, I got into it. And as I got deeper into it, the more I liked it. And I'm really looking forward to a second season of that coming out. And then, of course, I was so kind of zoned into my making that then I also turned around on Netflix, and in like the top 10 was the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell documentaries. So I watched those. Like, why not? I had never been interested in watching them previously because it's the type of stuff that just really kind of turns my stomach at the thought of it. But because of the prevalence of it in the news, I was like, you know what? Let's watch these. Let's see what they're about. Everyone else has returned to them because they're old. I mean, one of them I think is like from 2020. The other one might be from like 2020 and 2022. I don't remember. When they surfaced, I didn't watch them. But because they were in the top 10 and it's been all over the news, I was like, let's go ahead and watch them. I did enjoy them. I did have to take a break from them occasionally. Like, I started with Jeffrey Epstein, and I want to say it's 4 or 5 episodes, and I got about halfway through, and I kind of took a break. With Maxwell, I felt like I had to take more breaks with that one. That one really, really kind of bothered me more so than the other one. I think it's probably just from mental expectations where maybe I'm just more prone to thinking a man is capable of that kind of thing and less likely to think of a woman putting girls and women in that kind of position. So I watched those, and then once I got out of that, I was like, oh, well, I don't want anything serious anymore. Let's go back to those Hallmarky kind of shows on Netflix. And I started Sullivan's Crossing. I want to say I'm only in like episode 2, like it's very fresh, but it was reminding me so much of Virgin River that I was like, oh. And I think the first season of Virgin River, I was kind of the same way where, do I like this? Is this a little too cheesy? But of course, Virgin River really got a lot deeper. So I'm thinking Sullivan's Crossing is going to be the same way. I had mentioned it in this week's Tuesday tidbit email. And I did get a couple of people that were like, oh, we're loving Sullivan's Crossing. You should definitely stick with it. So I obviously will. I haven't really been watching too much television because I've been spending so much time in the dye studio. But when I have been watching television, I've obviously been crafting. As for shows, I know some of my dyer friends, this is Flock Festival weekend coming up. So I know a lot of people are headed out there. I think there is a show in Michigan this weekend or maybe next weekend. I don't remember. I think. But my first show is not going to be until the Frederick Fiber Festival. This is the first year that I am not returning to Shenandoah. For me to go to Shenandoah, it is quite costly. Not necessarily from the vendor like booth fees or whatever, but it's very expensive because now I have 4 dogs that I need to board. And when I take my dogs to boarding, they do not spend the majority of their time in those kennels. They do, like, I pay almost twice as much for them to do what's called like all day play. It's sort of like daycare, but I don't want my dogs in kennels all day. So they'll spend like 4 hours playing, then they take a break and go to their kennels, take naps, then they go back and play for like 3 or 4 hours. Then they go back, nap, get fed, go back out for, potty breaks, come back in. Like I don't want that. So that is very costly to do that. Even when I just had three, it was I felt like it was costly just with one. So between boarding my dogs and then hotel fees, I wasn't making enough money. Like I was making enough money to break even, but it wasn't, Shenandoah was beginning to not be worth my time. It's also at the end of September, and the last few years have been really challenging with weather. So for me, you get challenging weather, expensive costs for me based on my household and lifestyle. It just wasn't working for me. Not to say that I won't return it in future years, but the last couple of years I've not done real well there to make it worth putting out so much money. So my first one will be the Saturday in October. I think it's the last Saturday of the month, at the Frederick Fairgrounds, the Frederick Fiber Festival. Again, the truck is almost completely caught up with overstock. I've got a bunch of yarn wound. I need to get it labeled on the website and then just put it up on the hooks and have bins of overstock for it. Sock sets are up. Obviously, I'll have new samples. So I'm pretty excited. And other than that, there is nothing really new. Paisley is completely vaccinated. So last weekend she started puppy school, which it's not like obedience training, like it's not that per se, but the training facility that I go to, you can't enroll your dog in obedience training, like that training 101. You can't do that until they're 5.5 months old. So they do a program where for a flat fee you can purchase, and it includes like 3 private lessons and then as many Saturdays up until they're 6 months old. You can go, there's an hour where they plan stuff strictly for what they call underage puppies. Basically, any puppy that's under the age of 6 months can come. And so she started that. It was definitely kind of interesting because here at home, she's very loud, she's bossy, because she's got 3 older dogs. But there, she was very different. I mean, she's still very clever, very smart, but it's like she quickly figured out when we're trying to teach dogs. Essentially, we worked on being allowed to walk up and greet another person politely, because a lot of puppies want to jump up. So learning to just sit and wait to be petted, just, and get attention. So we practice that. We swap dogs so that other people, so your puppy's getting used to other people handling them on the leash, that sort of thing. We try to teach them how to come up and greet another dog. Usually they don't allow dogs in the facility to meet nose to nose, just because you don't always know how someone else's dog is going to react. So because they're so little, it's kind of hard for puppies to hurt each other. She is one of the smallest ones there. But it was interesting to see her be really rather, I don't want to say timid of other dogs, but just kind of look at them like, well, why would you want to play with me? And you could just kind of see the gears. Like, she quickly figured out, well, I don't want to play with the puppies because they don't have the treats. All you people have the treats, and that's where the good stuff is. So she was more than happy to greet people and greet people appropriately. But whenever we tried her with different dogs. We took them outside and allowed them to sniff around and, you know, greet and play with each other on their own. And she was just like, yeah, that's okay. That's okay. If you have treats, I'll take a treat, please. So it's been kind of interesting. She will go again this weekend. I plan on taking her on Saturdays as frequently as I can. And then she'll start private lessons at the end of September, shortly before she gets ready to start actual obedience. But I know what I wanted to share with you. I like pumpkin spice things, but I feel like the world of pumpkin spice in the fall is really overdone, and we get some really atrocious things that are pumpkin spice flavored, but they're not good. But Hershey's has come out with these nuggets, and they are pumpkin spice latte flavor. And so I bought this on a whim. I was like, how badly could they mess this up? And quite honestly, these are really pretty good because I think the key is because it's pumpkin spice latte. There is you're getting that pumpkin spice, but you're also getting that coffee flavor in there. So these have been my new little treat. And they're the type normal. I'm not big on candy. Like, if I would told my parents the other day, like, if you're gonna give me something sweet, like, I want pastry stuff. I want cake. I am a cake girl. Cake, pies, donuts. Like, I'm here for the pastries. Like, that's my weak spot. Like, for me, baby showers, weddings, bridal showers, I go for the cake. Like, I don't want to play shower games and stuff. I mean, I do enjoy weddings, but my husband is all about candy. Like, he enjoys cake and those kinds of things, but like, he's the type of person that if you bring a cake into the house or you make a cake, he'll eat a slice and then he's it could sit for a week. Where that's not the case with me. I'm gonna eat a piece of cake every day until it's gone. But he's definitely a candy person, and I'm not really a candy person. But this candy was really good. I found this bag. There was a random display in the middle of Walmart. So that's where I found it. You might be able to find it other places, like get it delivered. I'm kind of funny about having candy this time of year delivered to the house. But this was really pretty good. And again, I'm not a candy person, but to have, one every couple of days, it's kind of been hitting that sweet spot because I don't have any cake or cookies or any of that kind of stuff in the house right now for good reason. And that'll do it for me this week. If you have made it through my rambling here at the end about dogs, candy, and television shows, tell me, what have you been watching? Like, what is the next bingeable show? If you're going to say The Hunting Wives, though, I did order the book because I want to try and read the book before I watch the show, but everyone's telling me that I should probably just jump in and watch the show. But I am curious, what are you binging? Like, what's the next bingeable show? I know most of us are looking forward to the new Outlander series that starts this weekend. By the time this comes out, I think it will have already aired the night before. And if you don't have anything to tell me about what you've been binging, or you don't like leaving comments, just leave me a candy emoji so that I know that you made it through the end. So until next time, friends, happy knitting.